The landing craft lurches violently as another wave slams against its steel ramp. You're pressed shoulder to shoulder with 30 other men, all of you soaked to the bone from seawater splashing over the sides, all of you trying not to vomit from the diesel fumes and the rolling sea and the fear that sits like a stone in your gut. You're 19 years old, a rifleman with the 116th Infantry Regiment, and you've never fired your weapon at another human being. The man next to you is praying under his breath. Someone behind you keeps whispering, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," like a broken record. Through the gaps in the ramp you can see the gray dawn sky and hear something that sounds like thunder but isn't. It's the naval guns behind you hammering the cliffs ahead with shells the size of automobiles. Your sergeant yells something you can't hear over the engines and the explosions and the blood pounding in your ears. The boat slows. This is it. The ramp is about to drop. The metal ramp crashes down into chest-deep water, and immediately the man in front of you jerks backward, a red mist where his face used to be. Machine gun fire rips across the opening like a swarm of hornets, and you see 3 more men collapse into the surf before you even process what's happening. Someone shoves you from behind and you plunge into the freezing Atlantic, your rifle held high, your pack dragging you down like an anchor. The water is so cold it steals your breath. You push forward, legs pumping against the current, and the beach, this nightmare stretch of sand they're calling Omaha, is still 75 yards away. Bullets snap past your head, kicking up little geysers in the water around you. A body floats past, face down, trailing blood. You don't look at it. You can't. You just keep moving because stopping means dying, and dying means you'll never see your mother again, never taste her apple pie, never feel anything but this cold and this terror. You make it to the beach and throw yourself behind a steel beach obstacle, gasping for air that tastes like salt and smoke. The sound is overwhelming. Machine guns chattering from concrete bunkers in the cliffs, mortars whistling down and erupting in geysers of sand and body parts, men screaming for medics who can't reach them because the medics are pinned down too or already dead. The beach is chaos. Bodies everywhere, some still moving, most not. A tank that was supposed to support you burns 50 yards to your left, black smoke pouring into the sky. Landing craft keep disgorging more men into this meat grinder, and the Germans on the bluffs keep cutting them down with methodical precision. This was supposed to be softened by the bombers, supposed to be cleared by the naval guns. But you can see the bunkers intact, the barbed wire uncut. The beach defense is exactly where German engineers placed them months ago. Someone miscalculated. Someone far from here, safe in England, looking at maps and making confident predictions, sent you into a kill zone. You're supposed to cross this beach. That's the mission. Get off the beach, get up those bluffs, get inland. But the beach is 200 yards of open sand with zero cover, and the Germans have had years to set up overlapping fields of fire that turn the entire stretch into a shooting gallery. The man who dove behind the obstacle with you, you don't know his name, catches your eye and you see your own terror reflected back. He's from Georgia, you think, or maybe Alabama, somewhere south based on his accent when he was praying in the boat. He looks about 16. His hands are shaking so badly he can barely hold his rifle. A mortar lands 10 feet away, and you both press your faces into the sand as shrapnel whines overhead. When you look up, a sergeant you've never seen before is running along the beach, waving his arm, screaming, "Move, move or you're dead." And you know he's right, because staying here means dying here. So you force your legs to work and you run. If this moment, bullets tearing through friends you trained with for months, boys dying in the surf calling for their mothers, chills you to the bone, hit subscribe so you never miss the next time history shows its darkest face. You sprint in short bursts, diving behind bodies, behind wrecked equipment, behind anything that might stop a bullet. The sand kicks up around your boots. You see a flamethrower operator take a round through the tank on his back, and he erupts in a pillar of fire that consumes him and the 2 men nearest him. You see a lieutenant stand up to rally his platoon, and his head snaps back before he can finish the sentence. You see things you'll spend the rest of your life trying to forget, if you survive the next 5 minutes. Halfway across the beach, you stumble over something soft and look down to find it's someone's leg, just the leg, still in its boot. You vomit into the sand and keep running. There's a low seawall at the base of the bluffs, and if you can just reach it, you might have a chance. Might find some actual cover. might live long enough to catch your breath and figure out what to do next. You make it. You collapse against the seawall with a dozen other survivors, all of you heaving for air, all of you staring at each other with wild eyes like animals who just escaped the slaughter. An officer, a captain, you think, is shouting about engineers and Bangalore torpedoes to blow gaps in the wire. Someone needs to cross that last stretch and place the charges. The Germans know this too, which is why they're concentrating fire on anyone who moves near the wire. You watch 2 engineers get cut down trying, then a third. The beach behind you is littered with the dead and wounded, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. You can't even process the scale of it. The tide is coming in, and some of the wounded are drowning because they can't drag themselves higher up the beach. Medics crawl from man to man, doing what they can, but there are too many and not enough morphine and not enough time. Hours pass like this. You're pinned. Everyone's pinned. The radios aren't working or the radio men are dead. Officers are dead. Sergeants are dead. The plan, whatever it was, is in pieces. Some men have given up entirely, sitting with their backs to the seawall, staring at nothing. Some are crying. Some are dead but still sitting up because there's nowhere for them to fall. The kid from Georgia who was next to you earlier is gone. You don't know if he made it or if he's one of the shapes lying motionless on the sand. You check your rifle and find the barrel clogged with wet sand. You check your ammunition and count 6 rounds left. 6 rounds. You were issued 96. You don't remember firing 90, but you must have, somewhere in the chaos, shooting at muzzle flashes in the smoke. Then something shifts. A destroyer offshore risks running aground and comes in close enough to fire directly at the bunkers, point-blank naval gunfire that finally starts to silence some of the German positions. A group of Rangers finds a narrow ravine that's not covered by machine guns and they start climbing. Someone gets a Bangalore under the wire and it detonates, opening a gap. The captain who was shouting earlier stands up on the seawall. You're certain he's about to die, and he bellows, "If you're gonna die, die on the high ground. Let's go." And somehow, impossibly, men start moving. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. You find yourself on your feet, running again, through the wire gap, up the bluff, firing your 6 rounds at shadows, using your rifle like a club when it's empty, clawing your way up with fingers in the dirt. You reach the top. German trenches abandoned in panic, foxholes empty, the bunkers being cleared by men with grenades and fury. You turn and look back at Omaha Beach, and the sight stops you cold. The tide has come in, and the water is red. Bodies bob in the surf like driftwood. Wrecked landing craft burn. The beach that was supposed to be taken in an hour took most of the day and cost thousands of lives. Young men who will never go home. Farm boys who will never see another harvest. Kids who lied about their age to enlist and died before they could vote. This wasn't a battle. This was a slaughter that somehow, through sheer desperate courage and the refusal to give up even when giving up would have been rational, turned into a foothold. The sun sets on occupied France and you're inland now, digging a foxhole with men whose names you still don't know, listening to distant gunfire and the groans of wounded being evacuated. Someone shares a cigarette. Someone else tries to crack a joke, but nobody laughs. You're alive. You don't know why. You don't know what makes you different from the hundreds who aren't. Maybe nothing. Maybe just luck, the randomness of which bullet found which body. Maybe that's the cruelest part. There was no reason, no grand design, just chaos and mathematics, and the fact that metal traveling at high velocity doesn't care about your dreams or your family or whether you're a good person. Omaha Beach wasn't forgotten. It became legendary, a symbol of sacrifice and valor. But what gets remembered is the victory, the triumph, the Allied forces breaching Hitler's Atlantic Wall. What gets lost is the individual horror. The boy from Georgia whose name you never learned. The flamethrower operator who burned alive. The wounded who drowned as the tide came in. What gets sanitized is the truth that D-Day, for all its strategic brilliance and historical necessity, was a meat grinder that chewed up human beings and spat out corpses. Approximately 400 American casualties on Omaha Beach alone in a single day. Sons, brothers, husbands, fathers, reduced to statistics. And the terrible lesson that echoes across the decades is that sometimes the cost of stopping evil requires sacrifice on a scale that breaks the heart to contemplate. If you can't look away from what these men endured, the price of the freedom we inherited, drop a comment. Which moment from WWII should we experience next? What in your life would you sacrifice everything to protect?